Hola, welcome to Basic Simplified. We are continuing with the inflation series with a video on types of inflation. Okay, let's look at what they are. So we initially start off with what types of inflation there are, then we'll go to the explanation part. So first we have the supply and demand side based inflation, that is cost push for the supply side and demand pull for the demand side. We have inflation which is based on the rate of inflation in a year. Okay, that is creeping, walking, running. Running also includes one called galloping. Running and galloping and hyperinflation. Okay. Then we have stagflation, which is based on employment rate and stuff. Structural inflation based on the infrastructure in a country, and building inflation, which is based on wages. Okay. Now let's look at them separately. First of all, we have cost push and demand pull inflation, supply and demand side. So for cost push inflation, when the supply falls, okay, while the demand stays constant, it's called cost push inflation. There's also another side to it, which is which you could say is like condition number 2 or situation number 2, second type of cost push inflation. But for our sake, we'll use it as a subcondition, wherein if it occurs, it's still cost push inflation, but this is a major part. The second side is cost of production increasing while your demand stays constant. Okay, so two conditions: supply falling or your cost of production increasing. Okay, how do these occur? So for supply to fall, it can be a natural calamity, floods, droughts, famines, etc. Or you could say pesticide attacks. There was not enough harvest as expected, crops not being good enough, or crops not being strong enough, etc. Okay. What about cost of production increase? When trade unions ask for more wages, right? So they have to increase wages. When government stops giving subsidies, when loans get costlier, your irrigation, electricity, pesticides, all of those go up in prices. All of these could lead to a cost of production increase. So anytime these happen while the demand stays constant, it leads to cost push inflation. Same number of people asking for either lesser number of products or products that were more costly to produce. So the cost of that final good goes up. Okay. What about demand pull inflation? Exact opposite. Your demand, demand increasing while your supply stays constant. How does this happen? Simple. When the government is doing more public expenditure, how do they do that? They usually build bridges, factories, or any other infrastructure based things, toll booths or whatever. So when they are doing more of it, it means more people are getting employment opportunities, which means more people have money to spend, leading to increase in demand. Okay. Another one is reduction of direct taxes. If you usually have only 20,000 rupees left for a month's expense because you're paying off a set amount of tax, if the government is reducing tax, you will end up having 25,000 or 30,000 to spend in a month. Okay, so that means your purchasing power is going up, so does for a lot of other people, leads to more demand. So any time that occurs, you have demand pull inflation. Now among these two, cost push is said to be the most dangerous one. Why is that? Because under cost push, your supply is falling, that is, your output is falling. What does a country's GDP mainly depend on? How much you're producing, right? So when your output is falling, what and all can happen? It will lead to unemployment or loss of employment. You are only producing half of what you were producing earlier. Why you need the full workforce? You can do it with half the workforce. So the other half, they lose their jobs, right? So when your supply is falling down, that is your output is falling down, it leads to increase in unemployment. Okay. And what does that lead to? The economic growth getting stalled or actually falling, right? So when you have inflation occurring, okay, or the price of goods are increasing, this is the main criteria. When you have inflation or the price of goods increasing while unemployment and economic growth are stalled or reducing. Mostly it's reducing, but sometimes even stalled is fine, because the more inflation happens, if these don't go into positive side, it's going to affect the people drastically. That's the whole idea. So under stagflation, when you have inflation occurring while your unemployment is falling and your economic growth is either stalled or falling, that is called stagflation or stagnant inflation. The economy is stagnant while inflation is occurring. Okay. Now let's look at the rate of inflation based type of inflation. The first one, creeping. If your yearly inflation or the amount of price rise in a year is between 0 to 3%, it's called creeping. If last year your rate of inflation was 1%, if this year your rate of inflation is 2%, so anything like that within 3% is creeping. What about walking? 3 to 7%. If your rate of inflation is 7%, 5%, 6%, it comes under walking inflation. What about running? So we'll divide this into two, because it has running and also galloping. Some people use it separately, some combine both together. Okay. Under running, if it's 10 to 20%, it is this one. Okay. What about galloping? If it's 20% to 1000%, because humans can only run, humans can gallop, only horses can gallop. Okay. So this is actually changing to a whole another species, which means up until this time there's red bells going on saying warning system is gonna crash, and once galloping starts, that bell just bursts. It's not warning anymore, it's happening. This is when your country either gets destroyed economically or you make drastic economic changes. Okay, so under galloping it's 20 to 1000%. What is hyperinflation then? It is when your country is in galloping inflation and leaders are like, it's not happening, and your currency crashes. Your currency, boom, it's gone. If you saw the news a few years back, you would have seen Zimbabweans pushing trolleys full of Zimbabwean money, like stacks of money. The reason is that their money was worth nothing. A whole trolley full of money could barely get them 1 kilogram of potatoes. Okay, that is what hyperinflation does. So right now, if you are able to spend 100 Indian rupees and get 1 kg of, let's say, strawberries, you won't, it's too costly, but still, if you are able to spend 100 rupees and get 1 kg of strawberries, once hyperinflation happens, even if you have 10,000 or 10 lakh worth of currency notes, you would still not be able to buy that 1 kg of strawberry. The reason is, every note, the value of the note, if a note says 100 rupees, the government of India guarantees it, the Reserve Bank guarantees it. Okay, once hyperinflation occurs, the government doesn't have the economic backup to guarantee the value of that money. That money now is just a piece of paper. That is your hyperinflation. Basically, this is your warning signs getting broken and destroyed and fire starting. This is the whole house burning down. That's it. Okay. Now we have these two, structural and built-in. The first one, pretty straightforward. Structural inflation. It occurs mostly in low income or developing countries. So anytime your infrastructure is not well developed, comes under structural inflation. Okay. So let's assume a farmer is selling tomatoes at 5 rupees per 5 kilograms. This is not even funny, it's actually true, it's happening. Okay, so farmers are selling tomatoes for 5 kg, for 5 rupees per 5 kilograms of tomato, and we as a consumer are buying the tomatoes at 50 rupees per kg. Okay, so why are we buying at 50 per kg when the farmer is selling at 5 rupees per 5 kilograms? So he's basically selling it as 1 rupee per kg. Okay, why? It's because of the middle part. That is, not talking about the middleman, I'm talking about the logistics and the infrastructure in between. The person buying the tomatoes, transporting it, bringing it here and selling it here. That middle part, that structure in between, which connects the farmers to the end consumers, is what is structural inflation. If the structure is not well developed, like in the case of our country, we as an end consumer will be paying an inflated price for something which the farmer doesn't have any control of, nor does he get any benefits from it. In earlier cases, even if you take cost push, when the cost of production value goes up and they increase the prices, the company and the people are getting the difference back. Here, no one's getting the difference back. The system is eating it up. Okay, so that is structural inflation. And let's look at the last one, built-in inflation. This is also called as wage spiral. Why? Let's see. So a trade union is fighting for workers to get higher wages. Okay. Why? Because their wages that they're getting right now is not able to deal with the present inflation. Okay. So what do? They ask for higher wages. Company agrees. Okay. So which leads to cost of production going up. Remember? Same way. Okay. Wages they ask, company agreed. So cost of production for the company is higher. So what does the company do? It increases the prices of goods. Simple. They don't have to soak in the extra amount. They can make the end consumer soak it. Okay. So they need to increase in prices of the goods, which is what exactly? Inflation. Right? Increase in price of goods is inflation. So what does this do? Goes back. Now the workers were asking for wages for the present rate of inflation to survive it. Because of doing this, because of the whole cycle of it happening, now the present rate of inflation again has gone up and the workers are not matching it. It's an endless spiral. It keeps happening and happening and happening. Okay? And that is your built-in inflation. And with these, we would have seen most of the right types of inflation. We still have core and headline inflation left, which we will be looking at in a separate video. Up until then, thank you. Have a good day. Adios.